First, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the city symbol of perfect friendship among all cultures.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Richard Penrose.
Here.
Ms. Teresa Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Tom Sidwell.
Here.
Mr. Philip Fox.
Here.
And Mr. Sandoval is not here.
All right. Did we have any public comments? I mean, approval of the agenda. I always miss that. I don't know why.
I move we approve the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
A second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell.
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
And Mr. Penrose.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Now it's public comments.
No, sir.
Next is approval of our minutes of our regular board meeting for May 27th. Has ever had a chance to review the minutes? Is there any additions or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of May 27th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sidwell.
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
Mr. Penrose.
Yes.
And Ms. Stevenson.
Yes.
And the motion carried.
Chairman's report. The only thing I wanted to mention is I know my granddaughter attended the summer camp. She really did like it. It was she had a great time. Thank everybody for putting that on. So the kid really liked it, I think. And next is Dr. Stanza. Is she
Is she there?
She has not joined in, no.
She hasn't joined. But when she does join, we'll come back and let her talk to us. We'll move on to President's report. Dr. Moss.
So y'all have my report. So the special audit should be winding down. The audit committee will be meeting with them tomorrow, and then they'll have the full, complete report for you all as a whole board, hopefully sometime soon after that. The 24 audit was here last week before last, and as far as we've heard, everything seems to be going fine. Doesn't mean we're not going to still have findings, but I think especially Mr. Martinez has done a lot of work on the administrative handbook. We're getting those in line, getting people now to make sure they know what's expected and following that. I think it's still going to see improvement. Let's see. There was something else I was going to add. One thing that did happen last week, the NIMIC, which we're a part of, it's the New Mexico Independent Community Colleges, talked about raising the annual dues. They haven't raised it in a long time. It was $16,000. They talked about raising it to 18 or 20,000. Everybody wanted to go to 20. I again voiced my, and kind of through an email. I don't like that we're a college of 700 or 800 maybe total, and we pay the same amount as CNM. That's 20 or 30,000. But we do get the same benefits from that group, the same assistance. And I'll just give you an example like today. So the last couple days, all of a sudden HED came back and said, well, your bar doesn't match your original budget. And so Ms. Sharmer's been working on that, and we spent a lot of time last night trying to go through that, resent it, and then today, same thing. Basically what had happened was on one of our pages for our budget, instead of 440,000, they'd put 44,000, and it's a page that doesn't link to any other parts of the budget. And so, but HED didn't catch it, DFA didn't catch it, and DFA pulled that number, and they said your bar has to match that number, even though it was a mistake. And all the other places in the budget, it was 440,000. So anyway, all that to say, we were really at an impasse, and I was ready to pull in Mr. Honey and Nicole Masius with DFA, but I've reached out to Vanessa Hawker, who's the director of NIMIC, and she, I think, comes from a higher ed background and has some finance knowledge, and she was able to, has a good relationship with Ms. Martinez at HED. So we were able to get that resolved today. So anyway, that's why the dues are gonna go up to 20,000, and that probably isn't in our budget. But it's invaluable and probably as good of, lobbyist in a sense as anyone we could find for HED, for DFA, just representing all the junior colleges.
Did they, when you expressed your concern, did they show any indication that they might be amenable to adjusting it per enrollment? That looks like the best thing, because it would, if you put everybody on the same footing.
Yeah, I brought that up last year, and they said they've debated that for years, but just feel like that it's, and for most other colleges, I mean, even if you go to like Luna or Covas, 15,000, 20,000 is not that much to them. It's much more meaningful to us when we're, watching every dollar. And so I haven't gotten any, and it's really the colleges that make that decision. It's not, So we'd be one vote out of 10.
And the bigger ones are probably going to outvote us.
Yeah, they will.
Comes down
Now,
to it.
with that increase in dues, it is, there are some good benefits, and I think Mark was a part of that meeting. He went in my place last week, but they're looking to do some extra things like that Lightcast study that we did a while back, the economic study. That was paid out of kind of a reserves that had been built up for a while. And so they'd like to do some more things like that it will be beneficial to all of us. But anyway,
It's just a big expense for us at this time.
it's a big expense for us. But at the same time, and I told them this when I emailed, I'm like, I wouldn't trade the benefit from this. Ms. Honker is a really great director for the group. I would say better than like the Council of University Presidents have, and definitely better than the branch colleges. They have their own group too, and she is by far the best director of the three, in my opinion.
You gonna be able to squeeze 4,000 out somewhere?
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't like to present that to the group as a whole, but yeah, we'll be fine. So anyway, we did get, kind of going back, we did get the bar. Judy went home, threw those numbers together to make it look like what they wanted, even though it was not accurate. And HED validated it and sent it on to DFA. So I think we escaped that. On that note, I got Judy called me this morning and said, that ERB, the retirement, had rejected her application to serve as a contractor next year. And so I don't know that we really have much room to appeal that. I'm gonna see. I reached out to a couple other people, school attorney and some others that might have knowledge in that area. We are not prepared yet, I think, to not have that support, because even though Rochelle's done a great job at kind of getting the day-to-day working stuff and working on the audits, she hasn't had time to start working and learning the budget and the bars and stuff like that. So that was not a pleasant thing today either. So
HED, someone that's not gonna,
ERB, and that, so Ms. Sharma retired from NIMI,
yeah, okay.
but she can work as a contractor, and that's how we hire is as a contracted consultant. But what I've heard is they have new counsel now, and they're saying, this is too close to procurement. You've already worked there a year. Actually, she's worked the first 2 years, but, and so I don't know how that's gonna shake out.
Yeah.
And there are some possibilities, I don't even know if they'll allow it, but we may have to go out for procurement, and just advertise, which means whatever happens, we probably end up paying more. But, I don't know that they would approve her regardless of that.
Well, and then you deal with somebody that's not familiar with stuff, where she's got 2 years under her belt. She knows where everything is, so she can get things done a lot quicker than.
Well, and finding someone retired who has experience in New Mexico higher ed.
Right.
I mean, that's part of the issues that we've faced is higher ed is a different animal than city and county government in New Mexico. And so there aren't that many people out there that are just have time and have that experience in that. So
And want to do it,
yeah, and are willing to do it. Yeah.
Dr. Moss. So, Jamie is there, she's waiting to be let in, and I think you have to let her in, because it's your calendar.
Oh,
So
okay.
you may have to get into your calendar and let her in.
Do I do it on this laptop or?
Yes, you can do it on, you just need to go to your Google Calendar.
Google Meet.
Google Meet, and I
This is the Board of Trustees meeting.
yes. Just click on that. And does it give you an option to let her in? There we go. Is that?
Okay, great. So now, do I need to get out of it?
There we go. Okay.
All right.
Jamie, can you hear us?
It looks like the microphone's not on.
the bottom there,
Your,
the mic.
your mic, this is your mic on.
My mic's being used by our streaming service, so no.
Okay.
Are you in there, Mark?
I was,
can-
but I got out.
So what we could probably do is open one of your 2 laptops into it, and then just mute it so you're not getting feedback, but you can still use the mic to
So-
talk.
Open yours back up and
Yeah.
mute it. Cause you're the one controlling the calendar.
I can, but should I?
I need the audio on yours, but not the microphone, is what I'm saying. Turn the volume all the way down on your computer?
So you're saying mute my volume
Yes.
and turn my microphone on?
Still not gonna
You can't unmute yours?
work.
Hello?
No.
Hello?
Hello,
Oh.
Jamie?
Can you hear us? She can't.
Try, or do you not have a microphone?
My microphone's being used by our streaming service. So I can't unmute mine.
Hmm. Jamie?
Turn your volume all the way up
Huh?
on your computer. Turn the volume up on your computer. Mm-hmm.
That should.
But it's muted.
Unmute your mic, unmute your volume.
Okay. I don't think that's the answer, is it?
Can she hear us now?
No.
Jamie, can you hear us?
I can.
Oh, hi.
Any of you.
Good.
Let me put my camera on, and you can see everybody, I guess. Well, hang on. Let me take the.
Now I can see one, that's great.
Well, the board is all here.
Yes. How
Hi,
are you?
everybody.
Hello.
Nice to see you again or meet you.
So, Jamie, I'll just turn it over to you and kind of let you take off, cover what
All
you
right.
want to.
You've gone through the first part of your meeting. I saw the agenda.
Yes.
I'm gonna try
Okay.
to turn the background thing on.
So I can't see you. I know I've met some of you in the past. And so nice to see you again, or nice to meet you for the first
Yeah.
time. I am Jamie Steness, and I'm one of the vice presidents for Accreditation Relations at the Higher Learning Commission, which means I'm the primary liaison on the accreditation side for Mesalands Community College with the Higher Learning Commission. Here's everybody. Hello. This is great.
Hello.
Okay. And I'm the primary contact there at the Higher Learning Commission, and I've been working pretty closely with the accreditation liaison officers there, and with Joel Kaiser and with Dr. Moss to work through and prepare up to this probation visit that you've got coming up in September. So as a history, I'm sure you know the history, but I'll just backtrack it. We got involved in the spring of 2023 when there had been a series of leadership changes, and a lot of information in the news about those leadership changes and about some financial difficulties at Mesalands Community College. So we got involved at that point. Our president called for an advisory visit, which is her prerogative by our policy to go out and ask a lot of questions, to ask for some information up front, but then also to go out and make a visit. So in the fall of 2023, I visited the campus along with two of our peer reviewers who conducted an analysis there and determined that there was enough risk for Mesalands that the institution was recommended for probation at that time as having a not met concern with some of the criteria for accreditation. That was also then approved for authorized by our board. And what happened then was that they assigned a probation visit for the fall of 2025. So we are right on that. It's scheduled now for September. And this is like a comprehensive evaluation. This is like a team coming out. There will be 5 people coming out in September. They're going to look at not only the areas of concern that were identified in the 2023 visit, but they're also going to be looking at all the criteria for accreditation to make sure that Mesalands Community College is still in compliance with the criteria for accreditation, and we can still maintain full accreditation for the institution. So at this point, the institution has gotten the team. I have not talked to the team yet, but you should have received the list of people. It's called an IES, an Institution Evaluation Summary, which will tell you who's on the team coming out in September. I will talk to Dr. Moss sometime in the next couple weeks. We haven't talked about the Dr. Moss, but I don't usually attend these, but I can if you feel like that would be important for me to come. Typically, I will attend an advisory committee, but not necessarily a probation meeting. So we can talk about that. If it's going to be useful to you, I will attend. And then I understand that the state of New Mexico is also going to send a couple of observers. The state of Mexico, sometimes that higher education body, they're called SHIOs, the state higher education authorities, they will send sometimes the representatives to observe our visits. They are primarily as observers of our process so that they can gather information in a kind of fact-finding mission. But this visit should really be treated as a full comprehensive visit. And I know that, I talked to Dr. Moss and his team at the annual conference. We spent probably about an hour together going through kind of what that visit means and who's going to be there and what it's about. You're going to write a full assurance argument, talking to each point of the criteria for accreditation. You'll be writing to the new criteria for accreditation, which has 4 sections as opposed to 5 sections. But really, all the material is still there. It hasn't changed that much. We've just combined 2 of those into 1 section. So I've been working with that team, coaching. I'm available at any time to answer any questions about that. Because there was a probation recommendation, there will be probably some additional focus on the areas of concern for Mesalands, and those are all outlined in the last team report that you received from that advisory visit in the fall of 2023. So the situation and the analysis that team did that led to the probation recommendation will all be outlined in that report. So the visiting team of 5 is going to come in and look at those items. And again, I'm happy to be there as support, but I don't have to be. There's an additional cost for the institution, so I'm aware of that I don't need to travel if Dr. Moss doesn't think, or the board doesn't think that I need to travel for that. I'm happy to be there as a source of support, but I don't want to add cost to this process if I don't need to. I'm happy. I've been trying to be a support to the institution throughout the process. I have great faith in Mesalands and great faith in the institution's ability to overcome these short-term issues and the leadership changes. It seems like there's a solid board in place now. There's solid leadership in place. And the board's role really in this visit, because the reviewers coming in will really want to be talking to the board. So it's an important thing for the board to understand what the current financial situation is, where the institution is going as an institution, to be supporting the strategy that's been laid out by the institution, to be part of that strategy, to be supporting the staff in that strategy, and to be sort of maintaining the financial credibility of the institution as it goes into this new strategy, and evaluating the chief executive. Alan Moss, Dr. Moss, came into the organization during a time of some turmoil. He's now been appointed as the full-time permanent president of the institution. It would be incumbent upon the board to sort of say that we've evaluated that. We made this decision based on an evaluation of the strategy and the progress against those goals. I've talked to Dr. Moss and his team about this in the past. You don't have to have every single issue resolved by the time you get to a probation visit. We understand that institutions sometimes have a lot of work to do, and if you've made adequate progress against some of those things, you may not come out without monitoring, but you can often get off the probation designation by making significant progress against a series of goals. So the team there has been really transparent with me always about where they are, what they're doing. It's been a very good relationship, in my opinion. But you need to be as transparent as possible about where you are at this current moment, right to that moment. the report that the institution is delivering is due a month before, 28 days before the team comes out to visit. They then do that work and work with the ALO there and the consultants there to develop an agenda. And the board will be on that agenda. And again, mostly the questions that the team is going to be asking the board will have to do with and trying to find out how aware is the board of the strategy that's being deployed by the current management team? How aware is the board of the financial difficulties that Mesalands has had? How are the operations with the state going? Is the board training been resolved? There were some issues in the last board meeting about in the last visit about the board not having quite enough training, and I know that you've been working on that. So anything you can do to talk about how that's been resolved and how those issues have been resolved is going to be important to this visit. Typically, the board will meet with the team. Again, I don't know what the team chair is going to decide, but a lot of times this happens at the end of the day on the first day, or it happens at lunch on the first day. The teams try to be very respectful of the fact that boards are not employees of the institution. They have their own jobs, their own lives. They're coming from other places. So they try to do it at a lunchtime when people can log in via a Zoom meeting, or at the end of the day when board members might be able to get off work a little bit early. There's no restriction on whether a board has to meet in person or via Zoom. But we find it helpful if at least a couple of members during these meetings can be present during the board meeting. So if that meeting gets set and you find that you have the ability to travel to the campus to be there and present, we have often found that to be helpful to the team because there's some rapport building that goes on. So that's really the context of this. It's my great hope as your liaison that we can dispense with the probation designation, that you can move into some kind of monitoring or not monitoring at all. If you've resolved enough of the issues, we can just move into regular accreditation. But to get off of a probation sanction and move forward for Mesalands Community College. And that's sort of been my goal. And I have great faith in this team and hope that it's going to be a great visit. And again, I do not intend to travel unless you think it would be helpful for me to travel.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stop there and see what questions you have about the process going forward into the September visit.
Jamie,
Go ahead.
this is Tom Sidwell. I'm out of the picture there. Will the team meet with the board as a whole or individually?
The team will meet with the board as a whole. So again, typically this is a lunchtime meeting or an end of day meeting. And this will be, I would say you probably should hold your time available that first day of the visit, that Monday of the visit. It usually happens on the Monday of the visit. So you should try to hold your time open. It's one of the first things that typically gets scheduled between the team chair and the president and ALO is they'll reach out usually 5 or so weeks before the actual visit to try to start finalizing the schedule. Once because there will be a board meeting no matter what. So usually the team chair will reach out 5 or 6 weeks in advance, and then the visit actual agenda gets scheduled in that month leading up to the visit. From the time that the report closes, we call it closing in the system, to the time that the visitors come. But I would try to hold your time open, usually around that lunchtime of Monday or late in the day on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have any.
I think we have done a full retreat, whole day of training.
It's excellent.
Liba did. I don't know if you know Dr. Liba. He's the one that did the training, and he went over some of the criteria that we needed to be responsible for the HLC. I think we're the board and all of the staff and Dr. Moss have really been trying hard so that we could meet our goals and get rid of the probation. So I feel confident that we can do that.
Great. Yeah, the board is mostly touched on in criterion 2 around integrity and process, particularly in core component 2C. The board is also implicated in 5, in criterion 5, the old criterion 5, now it's in criterion 4 around finances and sustainability and strategic planning processes. And then you want to take a look at the assumed practices, which are those practices that we assume that an institution is following in the background. We don't come in to evaluate them unless there's a finding. So we just assume that they're functioning well until there's a finding, and then teams will go back if they think there's something wrong.
All right. Any other questions? If not, we appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. I think all of us were, the last time they were here, HLC was here, we were all here and met with them. So hopefully it'll be going
I
smooth.
came and I see some familiar faces there. So.
Yes.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Jamie, what is the time frame of after they have been here? So what is the time frame on decision making or what they're going to do now?
So it functions, a probation visit functions very much like a comprehensive visit. The team will come on a Monday and Tuesday. They arrive Sunday night, they deliberate, they go in and they do a visit for a Monday and Tuesday, all day Monday, half a day Tuesday. They deliberate Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday morning. And they get most of the report written before they leave. And then they have about 2 weeks to deliver it to me, and I'm the first reader, and I'll read through and I'll ask some questions and see if there's any gaps. I want to make sure that the evidence that they've provided leads to a solid argument. That's mostly what I'm looking for, is whether the argument is consistent. Then thereafter, they will finalize the report. It's due a month after the visit. At that point, the institution will receive a copy of the report along with an opportunity to respond to the report. So you can write a response to whatever the team has written. Usually there's a correction of errors of fact that come first. So sometimes there's a name that's misspelled or a number that's not quite right. And so the institution has an opportunity to correct those errors of fact that the team might have made. And then once the team report is finalized, the institution will have an opportunity to respond to the report with any additional findings, any additional information, anything they might want to add that wasn't added before to the report before it goes to the Institutional Actions Council. So the team makes a recommendation to the Institutional Action Council. The Institutional Action Council is a subset of our board. Our board has delegated some of its decision-making authority to this subset of bodies, this Institutional Actions Council, primarily because we have 950 institutions. And so our board would be meeting like monthly for hours on end if we didn't have an Institutional Actions Council that works on these cases. So the first stop for a probation case is that it's going to go to the Institutional Actions Council, which is going to do what's called a de novo review, which means in the fresh. They're going to look at all the information that came into the team. They're going to look at all the information that came in subsequent to that. So any additional information that the institution provided, any report or follow-up the institution provided in that response. And they're going to make a judgment, and then that's the initial decision that will go to our board. Unlike a regular visit, which would stop at the IEC, a probation visit is going to go all the way to our board. So in your case, you're probably going to go to the February board meeting. You're going to get an initial IEC ruling. So for a September visit, the report's going to be due in October. It's going to go to a December IEC meeting, and then it's going to go to a February board meeting for final decision. But you'll have a pretty good idea of where you are after the team report comes along. You'll have an idea of whether or not you've been recommended for removal of probation at that point. And that's a pretty good sign. If you can get to a removal of probation out of the team with maybe just some monitoring or something, the IEC will usually go along with the team's recommendation because they've not been on the ground. Again, I don't know. These are independent reviewers. They make their own judgments, but based on my experience, that's what I've seen. So if you can get past this first hurdle, that's really the most important. And then going into the IEC, they'll make the initial decision and recommendation to our board for February.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I appreciate the time and giving us this update, and hope we'll go forward. Thank you
Sure.
so much.
Absolutely. I'm available for questions anytime, so feel free to reach out. And I look forward to working with all you going forward.
Let's do.
Thank you, Jamie.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll go back to Dr. Moss's report to have some additional information. If not, any questions for Dr. Moss?
Let me add a couple other things if I could.
Okay.
Well, maybe. The only other thing I'd add is, right now, Mr. McVeigh is kind of taken over the institutional research part that Dr. Hackett had when she was here. He and Mr. Wickham have done a lot of work at probably fixing some systems that haven't been fixed in many years, and it's changing our numbers a little bit, and it's going to be more accurate. But at some point, I think we're going to need to add either as a halftime or something, a person dedicated just to that, because one, he has a lot of other responsibilities. It's good that he's learning the system, because there was always questions about, well, where did these numbers come from? They don't look like what we see in student services. So just in the future, that's something that we're looking at. I can't think of anything else right now, so if you guys got any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Moss? Thank you. Next, we'll go to the Open Meeting Act resolution. This is something that we have to do every year. So really, it's just a change of the dates, our meeting time, that we're gonna follow the Open Meetings Act.
I just have one comment. It says that the notice of the meeting will be sent to Quake County Sun. Does Quake County Sun exist anymore? Or should it be Eastern New Mexico?
Probably should be Eastern New Mexico. I know their stuff goes to Eastern New Mexico, but you're right, I don't think it's called Quake County Sun
Yeah.
anymore. So I'll check on that, Mr. Warnick, but I think you're right.
Is it-
A good catch.
We probably pay to the Clovis Media Inc. or something like that. We'll just make sure to make that change. Any other questions or comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution with that change.
Second?
Got a motion and a second, roll call please.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Next is the May 2025 financial report. Has everybody had a chance to review that?
I had a question on the CD report. I noticed on here that the CD we had with the New Mexico Bank and Trust is not listed anymore. And is that just, they didn't get it put on there, or was it cashed in, or?
I'll ask Rochelle about that. That's the one that was for the
61,000.
bond we had to do for the U.S. Department of Ed
Right.
surety or whatever you want to call it. But I'll ask about that. And then I told Mr. Box this earlier in a phone call, but I did call everyone's federal credit union. They said we're currently earning 5% on that CD. But I'm gonna get with Rochelle. We just haven't had a time to connect on it, but we wanna make sure that's what's showing up on our statements. So we'll get that resolved, but that's what they told me when I called about that CD.
Was that just renewed?
Huh?
Was that just renewed?
Um,
5% or?
it would be, I don't know. That's why I wanna look at the statements and see.
This one,
It is up for renewal in July.
July.
Yeah, and kind of while we're on the subject, you know, the end of May report, it looked like our cash was down to like 1.8 million. It's actually a lot higher than that now, you know, because we got the ERC, the first half of that in. We've collected some other stuff. And so in the next month or two, I think we need to consider putting some more money into CDs. Because, you know, if you're running around 2 million, you're probably, very seldom are you even gonna get it down to 1 million, the way we're going right now. And my hope is that'll even get bigger as we go with that nursing money, and to cover some of our expenses we've already done. So, you know, I think we need to consider putting, you know, another 500,000 or maybe more into to invest, to draw a little bit more money. But we can cover that.
We don't draw any interest on that operating account.
It's pretty
do we?
minimal, I think. I don't think we get much. If any.
I was going back looking at those financials, and yeah, it looks like it. For some reason that dropped. But anyway, find out that cash is still good. And it's even better now that we have the COVID money. That's what I'll say. So is there any other questions on the financial report? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I so move we approve the financial report.
Second.
Motion and second, roll call please.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell.
Yes.
The motion
All right. Next is the 2025-2026 personnel handbook. Everybody had a chance to review that. There's not a whole lot of changes, but there's a little bit.
I had a question, and I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but it seemed like it fits in here on some of this stuff. And it's concerning, you know, we've heard 2 or 3 times, and mostly from the state people, about what involvement the Board of Trustee has in hiring faculty and staff. And they seem to differ in the way I've always understood it, that the Board of Trustees' responsibility is to hire the president. The president is to take care of those issues. But they've indicated, you know, that we need to be involved in some of the different ones. And I was just wondering if we need in here somewhere something that states our position clearly as to what we see our position is on it.
Would it be in here, or
It's in there, isn't
And
it?
the board,
It
you
is
see
in
on the
there.
board?
Yeah,
the administrative?
It's
It's in the
personnel.
administrative one, right?
It's in the personnel.
Oh, it
Oh, and the
is?
personnel too?
The board is responsible for hiring the president.
I saw some kind of references, I thought it was a little bit, but
2.2,
2.2.
yeah. And I think it's also in the board handbook as well.
I
Yeah,
think that's what I've
2.2.
seen.
Yeah.
see, that seems to fit there. As far as the flow chart goes. I just didn't see really anything as a whole.
What is it?
The only thing I saw that was close to it, and I didn't feel like it really fit, was in 3.3 on the employee classification. You know, and in that with this new wording,
Well,
but that's
if you go
exempt.
above the flow chart, it, I was thinking it spelled it out a little bit more than that.
Yeah, just call it.
Well, that,
It just seems like there's a little wiggle room for them people to look at this and say, you know, we think it's such and such.
Yeah.
Where we don't spell it out in words to go with the flow chart.
well, and they, you know, during our training, I was always under the impression, the same thing. Basically, the only thing that trustees have to do with personnel is we hire the president. Dr. Leba talked about contract people, but we don't really have any contract labor other than, say, the Schumer.
Yeah.
And so that would be the only time that we would, you know, if we have a contract and we approve it, then
Right.
we would be able to terminate it. But
Well,
basically, we don't want to get involved in personnel.
No, what?
we need to, I know Mr. Martinez mentioned this a couple times, we need to change the wording in our contracts that we issue to the staff. Finding time to get all this done, we're gonna get it done, but,
Yeah.
it has some wording kinda like that too, and we need to get that changed in those. But does the admin handbook say anything about, so it'd be the board policy, I guess.
The board policy does, I don't think the admin does. It's in
Okay.
the personnel handbook. And it may be more like maybe under termination and, hiring and termination.
There.
Okay.
Is that 3.3?
3.3.
In the personnel,
Yes, sir.
It's up on the big monitor present.
Okay.
oh yeah, so that did change it, like what you were talking about.
Yeah, but it talks about it exempt personnel. But what about your regular staff and faculty? Are they classified as exempt personnel?
Yeah. Well,
Well, go
Exempt
Go
personnel,
down just a little bit, non-exempt.
non-exempt.
Okay, so we don't really have that connected to those. But we could.
It kind of seems like
add
it's
that
hinted
line.
at, but it's really not.
Yeah, so
You see.
basically we could add that same line up.
the 3.3.
Yeah, the serve at the discretion of the president on the
On the
non-exempt
next
too.
section of
Yeah.
non-exempt, probably, yeah.
We can do that.
I think that's probably.
at some point, I know I've said this for a while, and really I'm the one that hasn't gotten anything done, but need to look at the board policies and make sure they align with our personnel handbook or administrative handbook, that you all feel good about, run it by the attorneys, make sure that we're up to date on stuff in those policies too.
So whether they're exempt employees or non-exempt employees, they serve at the discretion of the president. Well, even if it's
'Cause I know personally, I don't want to get involved in the hiring and firing and all of that stuff of these folks.
because it specifically talks about, temporary employment. It says the president or appropriate vice
Yeah,
president may hire without board approval. And the part-time, it doesn't specifically say without board approval. But the temporary employees and the part-time should be the same. Like 3.4.2. See, it says without board approval, and then the part-time should be, all employment should be the same without board approval, correct?
When Dr. Leva was here, wasn't he saying that some of them did need the
He
board
said-
approval? I can't remember
He was
now,
talking
but I know we
about, the way I
talked about
understood him is, like if we have a contract employee and we approve the contract, then when we could either, when they terminate that contract or renew that contract, then it would come to the board. But not normal,
So like Miss Sharmer, because of the amount that we would pay her, it would need to come to the board for approval. May not now, but when we do that, and then I think that's what you're saying.
Right.
She's not necessarily an employee of the college, but we've hired her under contract.
Like if the attorney, Ms. Schumer, and one other person.
David.
David.
Yeah.
So those
Three.
Oh, yeah.
those three are the only ones that the board approved their contract. The full-time, part-time, temporary, that's Dr. Moss's responsibility. That's the way I understand it.
That is the way I understand it too.
I thought I understood it till he came and
And I understand, yes, the board can give advice, the president asks for advice or consultation or whatever, they can give that and all, but they're not the ones that makes the final decision on it. The president's the man that does that.
Right.
Or lady, whoever is the president.
So that's the only changes I see, is to make sure that it spells out that the board is not, it should be kind of like the same wording as the 3.3, where it specifically says only the president serves at the discretion of the board. I guess I think it needs to be more places than that, Mark.
No, I don't believe so. I think as long as it's spelled out in one clear area, defining that, again, that the board of trustees are responsible for the hiring of presidents, and that the president overall is responsible for the hiring or discharging of any employees.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty common practice with any kind of board and director, president, manager, whatnot. But I think as long as it's referenced in that section, I think we could put language in that section specifically that covers the entire handbook.
Yeah.
That way we don't have to be repetitive and repeat it every section.
Yeah, that'd probably work. So, was there any other questions or changes?
Are contractual employees covered in here?
Well, and contractual employees would not be subject to retirement or health insurance or, so it would be separate. This is only ones that, I think. Was there anything in the administrative on something like, on that?
So on contracts, it falls in underneath the procurement section of the administrative handbook, because then it's gonna talk about the thresholds. And as you stated, while I was doing some research for the handbook, I was looking through a lot of different state statutes. And I believe, like you stated, any professional services contract needs to come to the board, whether the amount of dollar amount is less than 20,000, that would trigger that typically. But since it's a professional services contract, like I said, an attorney, any kind of consultant, financial consultant, those should all come to the board for approval no matter what the dollar amount is.
Yeah. We've, an auditor too,
Yes.
except we've got a state auditor now, so. We don't have any discretion there. But,
Well, but you all do approve
contract,
The requisition.
yeah.
The annual requisition. And the contracts with that employees.
any other questions or?
I know we had some issues with nepotism with the last administration. Was all of that covered pretty good?
Yes, ma'am, that's also in there.
I didn't see anything that triggered anything, you know, but
It was in policy.
it just wasn't fault.
Yeah, it wasn't policy.
Any other changes or discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion with those clarifications.
So move.
Second.
The motion is second. Roll call to approve our 2025-2026 personnel handbook.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Mr. Fox,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
All right, we have Mr. Kaiser's report. It's not any questions, we'll go, we also have Mr. McVeigh's report. They're gonna do a remote access point for Quay County, that was under Mr. Kaiser. That's the flyer, America's Job Center.
I think that's tied to adult ed. Or I'm not sure of that. I
It's,
have to get clarification. There's several things. So, obviously Mr. Kukula is working, trying to get more involved up there for SBDC. Mr. Garcia is doing more, adult ed, and is actually looking, I think no, maybe he has a volunteer up there that does the adult ed training. Where Miss Freeze is working, and Joel, on expanding our phlebotomy, CNA programming to not just Clayton, but also some of the rural schools around there, Mosquero, Des Moines, where they're trying to develop kind of some, where they can get like the lecture part, maybe online, but use someone on site, whether it's from Clayton Hospital or a school nurse, to do some of the clinical work for those programs. And we would use I think that would use workforce money. Right now, most of ours on campus are through IET, which is through the adult ed program. So I'm not sure. Oh, you have it pulled up. Sorry, I was talking about stuff I wasn't even.
It's through the Eastern Area Workforce Development Board.
Okay.
It's to help with the workforce or to get people a job, right?
So we also have some programs. You guys correct me if I don't know what I'm talking about. We also have some programs where we have a few students on campus, like this summer, that are paid for through, I think it's tied to workforce, that are kind of working as interns. I think we have a couple that are working in the IT area. We had one, at least during the spring semester, working in custodial support. Some of that's through workforce, some of it's through, the county has a grant that pays for some of that. I know also Joel's had a lot of conversations with workforce on some of our programs too. So.
Workforce used to have a program called JTIP, where they had actually paid for half of the salary for training. I'm sure that's what this is through workforce. Okay, we'll move on. You also have Mr. McVeigh's report. And so we'll move on to Mr. Martinez.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'll go over my report quickly. Just wanted to update you on a few important projects. We have had a lot of construction projects moving forward at the end of this fiscal year, trying to get everything buttoned up and money drawn down before the end of the fiscal year next week. The roofing projects at Building E, they had a few different things to do on their punch list. They have since returned and got that finished. The HER funds, we're installing HVAC units at the Dinosaur Museum as well as Building A. The 3 HVAC units have been installed at the Dinosaur Museum, and the 7 remaining HVAC units for Building A will be installed on Thursday, weather permitting, if everything goes well. And as far as BR&R funds, we have the repairs that have been started outside of this building, Building G, on the west wall that faces towards the street on this side, outside of Dr. Moss's office. With the predominant southwest wind typically blowing that moisture in underneath, there's no weather, any kind of moisture barrier on that stucco. So what was happening, it was coming from underneath the building, and it created some issues with mold quite some time ago. The mold's been remediated. We have a drywall patch that needs to be redone within the interior, but the moisture barrier and the stucco's been patched. They have to come back and do color this week, and we'll be finishing that up. Really top-notch contractor doing that. We've also had them repairing some cinder blocks and block work at the Dinosaur Museum. That's been completed. And they started to do the interior, a separate contractor started to do the interior of the Dinosaur Museum, but stopped due to some concerns with mold. So I'm actually in the process of procuring a contractor to come in and evaluate that. And if it is mold, then we need to remediate it. So that's been some of the busy work. there with the contractors. Also, been working quite diligently on the admin handbook, trying to update those policies and procedures, making sure that we're not painting ourselves in a corner. We're gonna follow state statutes with all procurement to make sure we're mirroring that. Again, we don't want to create any unnecessary audit findings for something that is overly restrictive. And I'll touch base on some of those items when we go up to talk about the admin handbook. Also, have our John Deere tractor has been delivered to Clovis, to the John Deere shop. They evaluated it, they're pretty sure they know what it is. And we actually have a requisition in the process right now to get a PO to get that completed. Also wanted to announce we have a custodial position that is open, as well as an accounts receivable specialist position that's open in our business office. So we're trying to get those positions filled as quickly as possible. This time of the year is very difficult and stressful with the close of one fiscal year and opening up the next. Also, as Dr. Moss had mentioned earlier, IT's been extremely busy working with the Student Affairs Office to get the EDIR reporting up and going. Something that was quite outdated, and it sounds like we were actually one of the first higher ed institutions that were following the new protocols, and we were ahead of them. I think they had to do a few things to try to let us in and get things reporting the way they were supposed to, but that's on track. And also, I did attend the quarterly meeting for NIMIC. That was very informative. Had a few different discussions. I really liked the group, and I think that the membership fee is justified, as Dr. Moss had stated. They're a huge asset to us as a smaller institution, as a community college. And some different things that I wasn't too familiar with, I brought up. If there's any other options for health insurance, we had discussed kind of the uptick in costs every year, and if there's other options. And I was informed on we may be with the best position we are now. CNM and UNM are self-insured, but they're quite larger, and for us to be able to do something that would probably be nearly impossible. And then there's some other options that people are grandfathered into, but in all honesty, we're probably going to be in the best spot out of it when you compare everything. They also talked about college athletics and the difficulties with NIL, and most of the smaller community colleges aren't dealing with that like the universities. But very informative. I brought back some handouts, some information to share with Dr. Moss, and I was happy to be a part of that. With that, I stand for any questions in regards to my report. If not, then we have the admin handbook that I could help discuss as well.
Any questions for Mr. Martinez? If not, we'll go next to the handbook, administrative handbook.
Oh, so the administrative handbook, the main parts that I was focusing on for sure was anything that was going to create an audit finding, anything that was completely outdated. So again, we completely revamped the procurement side of things, the purchases, a little bit more clear on processes and how that will follow. Same thing on travel per diem. That was another area of concern that we kind of painted ourselves in a corner, and I think it's probably led to audit findings, and I just want to avoid that moving forward. With that, I also recreated the travel request form to make it a little bit easier to follow and have all the pertinent information to make some decisions when it comes to the addendum when the employees return for travel. The addendum was also revamped. Some of those, there's been a few different drafts and whatnot I passed to Dr. Moss, but I think I finally have one finalized version. I was kind of running it as a test, and as a beta, if you would, to see the errors or what may fault now that we're here in the early stages of it. And I think I've worked out most of those. Unfortunately, I've had a few employees talking to me about it. So those have been fixed. And I think once this has been approved, I'll go ahead and distribute the new forms and the policies and everything we need to at least close out this year. These policies obviously wouldn't take place until attorney approves it until next fiscal year, but the forms for FY25, there's still some travel that needs to be shored up and completed by the end of the fiscal year. I'll probably redistribute those with that guidance. But everything's redlined. We changed some titles and positions, some general information about, it talks about weather-related incidents and building maintenance, and just try to fix those titles as well. Some of the things that reference the cashier in the business office, we're now cross-trained and we don't have anybody designated just solely as a cashier. So I changed that tag to be business office instead of just cashier. So just updating it to work with what we're wanting to do and more efficiently, and again, to avoid any potential audit findings. Then, of course, with the travel, we have DFA's updated travel rates. So, for example, next fiscal year, the overnight per diem for 24 hours will change from $166 a night for lodging and meals to $180. We'll also go up on partial day travel. So needed to get all that stuff, all the state statute stuff that will be changing, updated to make sure we're in compliance. Mileage, if mileage is paid, that will also be going up to 67 cents per mile. And the rule that I learned through DFA is we pay 100% of the IRS's mileage rates. So they're ahead of us. They may be a little bit more, but the state has a policy that will follow the previous year's rates. So for this calendar year until December 31st, there'll be the current rate, and then January 1st is when they'll go up to the 67 cents.
That's the IRS rate.
Correct. So state pays 100% of the last calendar year's IRS rate. And I believe that's what it says. It says mileage will be calculated per 100% of IRS mileage from the previous year. And then another thing that we've been allowed to do by state statute, but it wasn't specifically in here, just so our employees know, we're also able to pay up to 20% gratuity on meals, as well as taxi services, any kind of transportation, Uber, Lyft, you name it. You could actually tip up to 20%, and that's covered within your reimbursement.
So any purchases of 20,000 or more come to the board?
Still, yes, sir, we kept that the same, wanted that to be consistent. And we've been exercising that since I've been here, at least as soon as I knew, we've been bringing everything 20,000 or above to the board. One thing we'll probably do a little bit better next fiscal year is we have safe feed for the livestock for the rodeo team, or we have other small purchase orders from multiple departments. So you may have Fine Arts has an open PO at Dickinson's. General Maintenance may have a PO. If we go over that $20,000 threshold as a combined college, not just a department, we also need to make sure and disclose that probably at the beginning of the fiscal year and state that we're going to be spending over $20,000 with this vendor or with that vendor, just for transparency in the following procurement. The vehicle checkout process, that's changed. It used to go through the business office. Business office has been extremely busy, and I feel that some kind of fleet management program works a lot better through the director of facilities. They're the individuals that check the tires, they check for fuel, and they go through and maintain them. So that's been changed already internally as far as policy to the director of facilities, but we're just going to get that changed as well in our administrative handbook. And this all ties in also to these HLC visits. They want to make sure that anything that we're putting out is accurate and up to date. We're updating our websites, we're updating our policies and handbooks, and that helps to make sure that everything's talking together and we don't have our personnel handbook conflicting with our administrative handbook and so on.
Any other questions?
I had one question. Mark, under the page accounts receivable, tuition and fees, that first line of that second paragraph says tuition costs are based on New Mexico residency. Is that the best wording with the change we made here a couple of months ago about allowing, the adjoining out of state people? Should that
I'm sorry.
be a little different?
Did I catch
Oh,
you?
Which
Right.
is that specifically on the accounts receivable side? Is that
Yeah, on that accounts receivable,
the payment options? I see that. So,
I know there's several pages into it.
payment plan.
And on the, kind of the bottom there, that accounts receivable page, it says Administrative Affairs Handbook
I
4.
see what you're talking about. It's page 4 of the administrative handbook, and the second paragraph under tuition and fees, where it says tuition costs are based on New Mexico residency. A one-time enrollment fee will be assessed to each student each semester. Course fees and a student activity fee, an outdoor activity fee, and a
This is
technology fee will be
really slow.
charged to each student based on credit hour level.
Responding very well.
So yes, absolutely, we could amend that any way that makes it a little bit more user friendly. We talked about the what was the other Good Neighbor Scholarship Program and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we could address that to make sure it's also including that border of Texas as well.
Any other,
And yeah, well, let me add, and yeah, we could change that. I think it covers it because you all set a policy for a specific group of people, and it is based on New Mexico residency. They're out of New Mexico. We just set a separate part for that.
Yeah, there's just a little
Yeah.
exception there.
Yeah. But yeah, that,
Just a
like
little
I said,
clarification.
we could add to
maybe.
that.
And the last thing that's probably, there's a lot of small changes, but the most important, another thing that, based on a conversation with the auditors, is our fixed assets. Right now, we have anything over $1,000 as a fixed asset. State statute kicks in at 5,000. So my recommendation is to change it to the 5,000 with an understanding, nothing official, but we'll have our own barcodes and our own inventory of high theft, high risk areas, hand tools, whatnot that are underneath that $5,000 threshold, but we just don't have them part of our official fixed asset list that we have to report to the state. So that's also being proposed to change as well.
all right, any other questions? Additions, deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion with the changes that we've requested.
So made.
Second.
The motion is second, roll call please.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
and Mr. Jerome,
Yes,
and the motion carried.
thank you for updating these policies.
Good job.
They're a pain.
It's an ongoing thing.
It is. You fix one and then you have to fix.
By the
six
time the next year comes around, something else has changed.
We already have a list of other suggestions for the personnel handbook. It just, I was trying to get that in before the board meeting and we were running out of time. But we already got some to,
Well, they see that we've looked at it anyway, right? Made a few little adjustments, so.
I think I wanna do this, and have it done before we start every year. And,
Yeah.
Right.
that'll be good.
Kind of with open meetings.
We'll never have it perfected,
Everything
but
else that
we'll
we have.
keep working on it every year, you know?
All right, the governing sentence will resume after the break. The trustees have any comments?
One of the things I saw in Josh's report is the graduation rate from the corrections facilities. I think that was really good to know that. And one other thing I was wondering, would it be possible that we get a report from the Small Business Development Center every once in a while as to what activities they are and so forth, so that we can see how that is working in with our community and the economic development and so forth?
Yeah, he sends a report to me, and we, of course, we meet every 2 weeks, but, yeah, I'll just have him adapt that to, and submit that for the board. Yeah, Margaret will remind me to do that.
As long as you get it delegated, you're doing all right.
Yeah,
I don't know about Margaret's thoughts on that.
No, that's what I'm here for.
That's her job, is to keep me from going too far off the rails.
They need a raise.
The other Margaret.
If there's not any more comments, I'll entertain a motion to go in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, roll call please.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevens,
Oh,
Yes.
Mr. Sitwell,
Yes.
and Mr. Fox,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Josh and Joel are calling tomorrow, so let's
All
just
right.
meet.
ready. All right, I'll ask for a motion to reconvene from executive session.
I'll make a motion, we reconvene from the executive session.
Second.
Motion and second, roll call please.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Boggs,
Yes.
and Mr. Primrose.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. There's no action in the executive session. Correspondence, there's a thank you from the LFC, thanking the college and Dr. Moss for hosting the event here. And the dates, I guess everybody will be here tomorrow at 3:00.
Oh,
For the,
well, you two will be,
or-
it's just
or-
the,
no,
it's
the
just the audit
finance, the
committee.
finance committee.
Yeah.
So they are gonna have a exit conference for the special audit.
Do we have to bring anything or
No.
you'll have?
No, they haven't sent anything,
No.
so,
I had looked for,
and then after that, like I said, they will come back, and I think they said that Mr. Maestas, the state auditor, will come when they present the final report to the whole
to the
board,
whole.
so.
Independence Day, July 7th, the college will be closed. And our next meeting will be July the 15th at 3:00 in this room,
At 3:00.
3:00.
I was ready to come at 3 and then I got here at 5 and it's just all confused.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, roll call please.
Mr. Boggs,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell.
Yes.